the modern American political landscape features a perplexing imbalance. The progressive movement has a mainstream core which achieves most of the practical political wins, but it also accepts a much more radical constellation of leftist beliefs. Leftists regularly portray themselves as open communists, violent Antifa foot soldiers, and revolutionary queer activists, and are still accepted inside the movement. Far from being canceled by their peers, these more radical elements are often elevated by the mainstream and given prestigious positions in critical institutions like universities. Ideas and leaders from the vanguard freely circulate into the mainstream, invigorating the liberal elite. In contrast, the American right abandons or actively destroys anyone outside the approved mainstream window of opinion. The field of acceptable opinion inside mainstream conservatism is laughably small, and anyone seeking to make a career inside the movement must stick to an incredibly narrow range of pre-authorized ideological platitudes. There's rarely any dedicated cultivation of young talent, and few institutions are willing to serve as an incubator for budding intellectual movements. To its great shame, the most dangerous threat to an up-and-coming right-winger who's seeking to push the boundaries of acceptable opinion are other members of the conservative movement, looking to eliminate the competition and receive a pat on the head from the mainstream press. Every viable political movement has an acceptable mainstream and a more radical vanguard. The mainstream serves as the forward-facing element of the movement, presenting the most popular and acceptable positions while securing practical political victories. Everything in the mainstream should be practiced, polished, and presentable. Optics are key, and reputations are closely guarded. The mainstream may at times seem too careful or too calculating, but that's good and necessary. These are the political operatives meant to sell the platform to the masses. The vanguard operates in productive tension with the mainstream as the heart and mind of the movement. Because the vanguard isn't forward-facing, they can explore new and challenging ideas. The vanguard contains the most passionate activists, often willing to employ new tactics and lines of attack in their work. Pristine and presentable reputations aren't as critical to the vanguard, so they're willing to take more risks, recognizing that they don't generally face the same level of scrutiny as the mainstream. Due to the less polished nature of the ideas and tactics explored in the vanguard, they can't earn a living in the same manner as a mainstream political actor, and require institutions which can shelter and fund their work. The dialogue between a movement's mainstream and vanguard is critical to its survival and success. The vanguard requires a mainstream to fund its work, advance its agenda, and do the practical work of securing political victories. While the mainstream may be great at presenting a practical and professional exterior, it's bad at cultivating new leaders or animating ideas. The mainstream relies on the vanguard for both intellectual and emotional energy. In American politics, the left is allowed to fully embrace their vanguard. When was the last time someone was publicly canceled for being too far to the left? When was the last time a promising progressive talent was ejected from the movement due to their radical past? It never happens. Even a former radical leftist terrorist like Bill Ayers can become a beloved mentor with a prestigious, well-paying job at a university. Radical ideas from the leftist vanguard are regularly and successfully circulated into the progressive platform. The mainstream takes care of the vanguard, and the vanguard revitalizes the mainstream. Everybody understands that they have a role to play. On the American right, no vanguard is allowed to exist at all. A narrow set of ideas was carved into stone by William F. Buckley, peace be upon him, and until recently, these were the only positions anyone hoping to make a career in the conservative movement was allowed to hold. And yes, sorry, people do need to be able to make a living doing this kind of thing. The left knows that it has to take care of people, that patronage is critical to its political machine. The right rejects this for some reason and ends up in exactly the situation you would expect. In the post-war consensus, being authentically right-wing was considered incredibly dangerous, so the old right was purged and replaced. Free trade, constant war, and a toothless version of social conservatism became the fusionism that drove out all other forms of traditional right-wing thought. The politics of Pat Buchanan proved far wiser than the neoconservatism of the Bush dynasty, but he would have to wait decades to see those positions vindicated after the relentless failures of Conservatism Inc. To this day, the most dangerous threat to a promising young right-wing talent is not the leftist media or smear organizations like the ADL and SPLC, but mainstream conservatives looking to gatekeep their positions of privilege. Whether they admit it or not, most mainstream conservatives understand that cancellation is a power wielded by the left, and the best way to eliminate the competition is to steal that power and turn it on the right-wing vanguard. Mainstream conservatives regularly dig up old position papers, private messages, or former associations in order to destroy talented political operatives by painting them as too radical. No one is ever fired from a position in a conservative institution for being a former leftist, but plenty of promising careers have been destroyed because an individual held opinions on immigration, nationalism, or foreign policy which were considered too extreme on the right. This is why so much of the work traditionally done by the vanguard has now been moved to the online right, or what is commonly called the dissident right. A large amount of the activism and energy that helped to propel the Buchanan-esque populism of Donald Trump had to be built entirely outside of the mainstream conservative system. The mainstream infrastructure is still trying to absorb and redirect that energy even today, with mixed results. Political theory, literary trends, art, music, and so much of the culture vital to political movements has been built online or in small communities while being directly under siege from establishment conservative institutions. The minute anyone steps off the Reagan reservation, they're labeled dangerous by the very people who should be helping them to forge a new path forward. Mainstream conservatism needs to make peace with its vanguard. No one at the New York Times likes you, and they never will. It's okay to listen to and even help support the exploration of ideas that you don't immediately agree with. America is in a critical moment of social and political upheaval, and the sclerotic conservative movement is simply incapable of leading in its current formulation. The right needs vitality, leadership, and cultural influence that the mainstream simply can't provide. And if Conservatism Inc. continues to see the gatekeeping of their privilege as the ultimate goal, then the left will continue to dominate. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is a great time to do so. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, make sure to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you do, leave a rating or review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. If you'd like to pick up my new book, The Total State, you can do that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or order it through your favorite local bookstore. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, or Gab, or Substack, or Instagram, if you'd like to watch these videos on Rumble or Odyssey, the links to do all of that are down below in the description. And of course, you can catch all of my episodes and read all of my columns over at The Blaze. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.